Okay, we're just waiting to see if we are live. And I think we are live. Hello to everyone in the audience. Just before we get started properly, could someone confirm whether or not you've got audio coming through, as we are using a new platform?
Anyone out there?
And hello, Luke, in the chat as well. Let me... Audio is good. Thank you very much, Lee. With that, I'll shut up and hand over to Phil.
Great stuff. So this is quite exciting because this is our first ever live stream. So it's quite a nice way to finish off 2021. I nearly said 22 then. Getting ahead of myself. So we are here to talk about all things L&D moving into 2022. So if anybody has been watching any of our webinars or podcasts this year, you'll see we have had plenty to say about hot topics in 2021. As always, we put the caveat on there as this is information and purely a thought. This isn't verbatim, so go out there, do your own research, and just use this as a platform for kind of thinking in potential new ways. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some kind of, I guess, trends and hot topics for what we believe in 2022 are things to watch out for, things to be doing, and just generally some hints and tips. So as always, the reason we are live is because we want people to get involved. So if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat. I believe Tom Mcdowell, you will be monitoring that and sourcing those questions. Otherwise, we will waffle on for an hour. If anybody's seen our 12 giveaways of Christmas, you will see that me and Tom have no problem filling an hour talking about L&D. He's dedicated to the Christmas jumpers. I have not dedicated. I made the mistake of putting my heating on all morning, and I tried putting one on, and I was baking alive. So
Weak. Put it on anyway.
Yeah, those itchy ones. So let's kick us off then. So there's been, I guess, a few bits of research, individual studies from learning companies and kind of well-known institutes and stuff like that have kind of said, here are the kind of key skills and things to be watching out for 2020. So really what we're going to be focused on is more so that kind of content side of it and going digital. So I'm going to kick this off with topic number 1.
Before that, Phil, you've gone back in time. You said 2020, which I kind of wanted just to leave it.
2022,
Yeah,
sorry. I'll get a calendar.
This whole end of year thing, it's very confusing.
Yeah, we know what to get Phil for Secret Santa. Yeah, definitely the calendar.
The cat will eat it, but at least I'll have one. So first topic, going digital. I think that I mean, it's been a big thing in the last 12 months, and I think it will remain a big thing certainly for the next 12 to possibly 24 months, depending on when businesses decide to do it. So going digital is, for obvious reasons, a good way to go. I think we'll all agree on that. Let's start off with the conversation then. How do you do it? Is it right to do it? And what's the right way to do it?
I mean, I think there's quite a big reflection piece there as well about the last 12 months, because we kind of feel like there's been this big push for digital, but it's kind of been a push for digital in the midst of a bit of a panic. And so we haven't necessarily seen digital conversion at its best over the last 12 months in all instances. Some stuff's been fantastic. Some stuff, I mean, this, what was it, last year, I think the term panigogy got coined in L&D, where it's just like, make it digital. And now we're in the world where we don't need to do that anymore, so we can be a bit more considered in when we say go digital, what do we mean? Do we mean e-learning? Do we mean a video? Do we mean a facilitator session just on a platform as opposed to in a room? Is it a combined approach? And I think almost the title is kind of the issue. This going digital makes it sound like everything has to be digital. It has to be the same. And I think step one in doing it is actually considering what going digital should look like in your situation. should it actually be 100% digital, or should it be some form of blend, which almost always should be, as we know, and really what works for your people. It's kind of the running theme of whenever we speak, we say talk to your people, but that's step one. Find out what works for them, and then do that.
Yeah, and also look at where your presence is. I think for although you might say you're going digital, you might have had a digital presence in the past. It's just that it's had a bit of a bad rap, and all it's been is kind of your box standard compliance training each year. And I think even if you've had that, you're almost in a better position than having no e-learning at all, because at least then you can get that user feedback and you've got some sort of internal research to say this hasn't worked and why hasn't this worked and why haven't our people done that. Because what better way to get to get the real insight from the people that are actually doing it or don't want to do it. um, we always sound like we always talk about the same thing, Tom, don't we? Because all we ever talk about is user research, user profiling, and going out there and talking to your people. But there's great validation in that, I think. And I think there is a real big shift. I think that's what I've seen this year, more so than any other year in L&D, is a lot more people talking about user personas, definitely, or learner personas, however we want to rebrand a common term. And kind of that, we've always said it, using a bit more of a product mindset, haven't we, around this? And don't just think that you have to bring everything in, that you have to bring in video, that you have to bring in all this different media. You need thousands upon thousands of options and courses to plug into your LMS, because more options is better, so to say, but it's not, because people just get lost in it. So I would say, if my top tip for going digital, if you're at the real start of your journey and you don't have anything, is figure out initially what you need in the simplest form, and then learn from that and then evolve from that. So if all you need initially is some compliance training, plug that in, see how that goes down. Or if you've got a mental health initiative, get some mental health content, build some mental health content, wherever that might look like, and start from there, and then get that feedback and build that on. I think the way I've seen it done bad, or badly rather, can't spell, can't speak apparently.
Flipping into Swindon there.
Yeah.
Phil.
We just
Six
missed words
fingers.
here. Is you try and go big and bold to begin with. I think that's the wrong way to go with when approaching this, is trying, because you overwhelm people and people don't know where to go. So it might be great stuff to bring in, like social elements, coaching elements, online, PDF and day-to-day management, as well as courses and resources and new platforms, and then integrating all this kind of digital training as well, face-to-face training. But it can be too much and you overwhelm people, and that can put people off. So start small, grow big if you're at the start, is my tip there.
I really like what Clive Shepherd says when he's talking about blended learning and how you choose the best method. And he says whatever's efficient and effective. So I think it's being mindful of, in terms of what you need to convey and the logistics and the learning and the learners, what are the pros and cons of that being face-to-face, of that being digital? What's the best method for conveying that, with all those things considered, rather than just, like you say, going blanket digital, that's the way everything's going, that's the progressive approach. Well, it always comes back to that early scoping out of what's going to work.
And that could be a tough thing to do. Figuring out where to start and what's initially needed is a tough challenge. So who's got any advice on how you go about that? I mean, I've got plenty to say, but I'll see if anybody else has got.
Yeah, I can jump in for a second. But I suppose and I think I've said this before on some of the other sessions we've done. I mean, so like we sort of what's the phrase? Sort of like like a I can't think of the analogy, but I suppose I would say that when you're thinking about sort of digital transformation and going digital, it isn't necessarily any different to just transformation in general. And I think up or something, way beyond what it needs to be. And so, if you've done any kind of transformation or change management, then what good looks like in that space for change and transformation in general will be just as good for something when you're going digital. and the types of things that you should think about there. So I always think about some of the big transformation programs I've been involved with. Ones that went well, started out with, some dedicated resources. They understood the need to have some organizational sort of change management capability. They understood the needs, which I think is from what you were saying there, whether that's end customer or internal customer. They had a strategy, but that strategy was agile to the extent that maybe they kind of tried to understand maybe where they wanted to get to, but then sort of chunk that up, and often sort of mapping that out, in terms of phases, or kind of some kind of architecture is a good way to go. Thinking about your constraints, making sure you've got the appropriate budget, and then I think ultimately it's about people, data, and processes, and making sure that you kind of wrap all those up and don't leave anyone behind. And I often think put people first. So as a kind of framework, I always think that sort of good change management is kind of delivered through those mechanisms in this space, and they will just be just as good applied here.
That's a big part of it, isn't it, Tom, that you just touched on, is that accessibility, because I think it's really easy to think everyone has access to tech, everyone's au fait with all of the systems and processes, and then not realize that you're actually leaving people out, or that you might have a really diverse sort of group of people that are comfortable or have the skills. And how do you make sure that you're not just providing something that only the tech savvy can access?
And interesting enough, I was watching the news, which is odd for me. So that's just weird. And it's the last 2 years, there are two things that Phil has got good at: watching the news and reading books, apparently. So we're living in a parallel universe.
And talking about yourself in the third person.
I was just about to say.
My life is theatre.
And what will Phil be doing after this live stream? Will Phil be having a drink?
I'll be stood at the fireplace talking in third person. But there was a news story on there about this. I think it was a place in Yorkshire, in the Dales or something like that, where obviously there's big rollout of kind of internet broadband speed and 5G and stuff like that. Because I mean, I'll be honest, I'm still completely oblivious to how bad people's internet is in some places, and this poor chap had to drive to the top of this hill. So when you're doing like two-factor authentication, you get the little code through. He was having to drive to the top of the hill to get the code to then drive down. The point being here is that is still a consideration, and especially in this week, particularly in the UK, where we've kind of been told to work from home again. That is a consideration, I think, where it's all well and good saying, well, let's do this kind of online kind of Zoom classroom. So therefore, everyone put your cameras on. That will kill some people's internet. So it's thinking about some of those different dynamics. I think that might be good. What would be? I don't know if anybody who's tuned in has any kind of stories to tell either about if they've been part of bringing in digital to a company, or if they themselves have gone in there. What are the challenges you've faced over the last 12 months? It'd be interesting to hear those as well, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gemma, were you gonna?
No, I was just gonna have my cybersecurity hat on from my past job, and I was thinking, this is what I jumped to, is the security side of it that's so often overlooked when we just, especially with people working from home, and you don't know, their Wi-Fi situation. Are they working from a cafe? If you don't have all this stuff in place, I think specifically over COVID, when everything just went, well, we're still in it, but the peak of it, when everything went digital, is how do you, that due diligence of ensuring, well, suddenly if everything learning and everything is accessible online and from people's own networks, then you're opening yourself up to a lot more risk as well. So there's, definitely some close work with the IT team and security team to look at that.
Definitely. I think in that sense, for years, it kind of felt like a lot of LMSs were over-engineered in terms of the level of security as SaaS products, and now finally we're going, now I get it. Now I get why I had to do all that GDPR paperwork. Rather, I watched Phil do all that GDPR paperwork last time we did an LMS implementation.
At the time I was like, why are we doing so many DAPRAs? And I thought it was so excessive, but now I understand why. Well, there you go.
But I think you're right. It's a big gap in the kind of L&D view. So often it's, IT are getting in the way. IT are getting in the way. It's like, well, no, actually, IT are doing their job. It's we've all kind of been there when someone wants to do something on our platform or in our world where we go, well, that's not how we work. This is what we need to do. And now we're going to have to work more closely with certainly with people like system administrators, and whoever runs your VPN is going to need to become your best friend. If your people are going to have access to the content, especially if you're going to do kind of dynamic linking out of courses to knowledge bases and things like that.
I think that's touched on quite an interesting topic, actually, is the speed to do all of this. Because it's all well and good your business saying we need to create some digital content, and whether that's bringing content in, quickly bringing in an LMS provider or LXP provider, whatever that might be, it's all well and good saying let's do this now, but actually there is a time element there, isn't there, about saying there is only so fast you can do to bring this stuff in. So maybe let's talk about speed of going digital, and any ways that we can potentially improve the speed of this offering, because sitting there, and Tom, we've done that. We've sat in a room literally with 4 other people, haven't we, trying to create a bespoke digital induction program from scratch, and it took us 6 months, I want to say, to just do the first tier. Is that about right? Yeah.
That's about right. Yeah.
So how do you make the boat go faster? Any tips there? I think a good one here is to look at this from 2 angles. Is one, how do you potentially, which is going to be one of our talking points anyway, speed up the curation period? And how do you potentially build a digital presence quicker in your business? What are we thinking in there?
I'll jump in then.
Silence.
Yeah, sorry, no.
That's what we think.
Go on.
Yeah. So I was going to say, I'm a big fan in those scenarios of kind of adopting a kind of min-max to everything. So how can I put in minimal effort for maximum output? Identify those really high impact areas where digital can be new, exciting, effective, impactful, and isn't going to take much to make. So we're talking that terrible, PDF that people have been moaning about for years and years and years. That should be a target when you go digital, because then immediately you're providing value to your audience. That's going to get their buy-in, the business's buy-in. You're going to generate some goodwill. You look at the things that everyone does, and that's why compliance training is often top of the list, because you can build it and it's useful to everyone in the business, or the largest possible number of people in the business. You don't want to start with the sometimes really fun but extremely niche digital projects that only like 12 people are ever going to look at. It might be fantastic, but it's not going to have much impact in the business in the short term. And then when you're looking at the things where you can actually have immediate impact, start by thinking minimal viable product. What is the absolute minimum I need to create for it to be effective? And then just create that. Don't attach the bells and whistles, launch that, and then iterate. Because often you'll find the bells and whistles are fun to make, but add no value to your audience, at which point don't add them. You wouldn't add extra stuff if you were picking up the bill. Is how I always like to look at it.
But on that note, don't make your MVP too simplistic to the point where people don't get it.
Absolutely.
Again, that's something I've seen before in the. It wasn't an LMS, but it was the launch of a different platform. And there was literally 2 articles that was launched on this product that were very specific, kind of maybe 1 call in every 100 that people had to deal with. So people didn't get it. And despite behind the background that they were evolving the offering within the product, people didn't get it to begin with, so therefore they never came back to it.
I would argue that's not an MVP. That's just a poorly designed and launched platform.
Well, yes, exactly.
But
that's what I mean. Just to really understand what an MVP is, because an MVP isn't stripping something back to the point of it being super simplistic to get it out there quickly. It still needs to solve the end user's problems. just in the simplest way possible. So from an LMS point of view or LXP point of view, single sign-on is kind of a classic feature that you often want from an LMS, but can you launch that without that feature, as long as you've maybe got the ability to for them to reset their own password? Otherwise, it becomes an admin nightmare. Been there, done that. It is horrendous. I was resetting 20 passwords a day. That's what the sort of thing is. You still need to create enough of a product to put out to the business that's still solving problems. Don't reduce it down and think that an MVP is just getting it out there quickly and it's a small version of your product, but still doesn't solve any problems.
And what Tom said there as well about that iteration, I think that's something I've heard a lot about at the minute, because if you were classically face to face and you were kind of doing something live in the moment, a massive part of digital is that it's continuous. If you've got stuff out there accessible all the time, you're going to have processes and people who are responsible for checking in with it and evolving it. And so I think there's much more work suddenly around that ongoing check-ins and that, you know, who takes accountability for making sure it's still relevant and current and delivering what you need.
And that's a great conversation actually for senior leaders to have, actually, because often going digital is seen as a time-saving and resource-saving exercise, but actually it's just shifting what resource you need. Because, like you said, Gemma, you can bring it digital, great, but you still need to maintain it and make sure it's working, and then somebody to build on that or do the changes. I know we've been there, Tom, haven't we, where we've done that, and actually we know for a fact that potentially that project, the e-learning hasn't been updated for 2 years. It just happens because life goes on. You continuously try and solve other problems and forget about what problems you solved previously and how outdated they might become.
I think if you're reaching more people with your content as well, which is great, that might be a kind of a key driver, then you're potentially going to get more queries, more conversation, you know, the traffic there as well of L&D's involvement to get stuck into that might be more resource demanding.
So I just want to dive in because we got something from the audience. Simon Pittman, thanks for getting involved. So it said we've shifted to virtual from September 2020 for classroom, and despite school locations, firewalls, our learners are usually able to find a way of accessing learning, and they're flexible with kind of the video on, which I think is really interesting, because this is quite a big debate, not so much L&D focused, but everywhere around, should the video always have to be on in meetings and in trainings and things like that, and does it actually help, which is interesting. It'd be good to hear everyone's opinions on that, actually. And then he just says he's agreed that, you know, constantly evolving is so important. They're focused on evolving their annual refresher training, and that's a prime example of, if you don't, then it's just doing the same course every year. And you know, once you say it like that, it's obvious to go, well, yeah, I would be annoyed. I would say this has no value. I would just write down the answers, stick them in a file, and put them out 12 months later, because it's the same thing. What's the point in repeating the same thing again and again? Awesome.
I think the camera on thing is so difficult because we've talked before about how remote working has kind of dissolved the barrier between the personal and professional, and people are in each other's homes. So there's part of me that's like, you know what, well, my dog's scratching at the back door and I need to get up and go and let him out and let him in, and there's only me that can do that, or that noise is for the rest of the meeting or the training or whatever. I want to put my camera off, and I want, you know, I need the flexibility to do that, or the doorbell goes. Yeah. But there is something, you know, that's more connected and present, and you know, you can focus more, and it's that nice sort of relationship building when you can see each other and you can read expressions and a bit of body language. So yeah, interested in what you guys think, because I think you can kind of make an argument for both sides.
Definitely. I think it's a really personal thing, and I think it's something we've never had to consider before, because when everyone was in an office, no one had a choice. You were going to be face to face. But speaking as someone who has always disliked that, like I said, there are days when I don't want to, you know, make eye contact. I don't want to be using body language. I just want to have the conversation we need to have and then get off, kind of thing, and go and do, you know, focus on the job itself. And I think for people with that kind of approach, or people who struggle a little bit in those situations, I count myself in that bracket, then working at home gives you that flexibility. And I think enforcing you must put your camera on is actually worse than when you had to be face to face.
You're right. Because sorry,
Now
Tom.
it's just exactly what you said. You're in your home,
Yeah.
and actually your employer has no right to from an ethical point of view to look inside your home. That's quite an unusual thing.
And does the visual make you any better or worse at your job?
Exactly.
Typically not. Like, it's not relevant, is it, to the quality of what you're saying or your output? Do they need to see your face?
This is it. But similarly, there has to be flexibility on both sides, right? You know, if I were to have come here today and go, no, not doing cameras, this would be really awkward. It's a black square in the corner where I would be.
We'd miss the Christmas jumper, which would be devastating.
Well, exactly. This is it.
I even got an upgraded camera just for this sort of thing. I'm not floating head anymore, guys.
It depends on the circumstances as well, doesn't it? I guess in terms of what's the purpose of the meeting that you're having. I think it's maybe one of those classic one size doesn't fit all type scenarios. And I think, you know, because even I think back to even his personal experience, we've started having team meetings, and there's a real sort of, I think there's a cross section in the office actually. Those that sort of think camera should always be on, you know, and others that I sort of don't. My sort of view is, I don't think it necessarily matters too much. It's personal preference. Some people don't mind. Some people just don't want to be. I guess it would depend. I think if I was maybe going on a call with someone, maybe I was doing a bit of a session where we were catching up, and maybe it was like a performance one-to-one or a coaching session. Maybe you sort of think, well, you know, in that small environment, it probably would be more helpful. And I see a lot of posts on LinkedIn where, you know, people are sort of doing those jobs where you're coaching, and it must be difficult if you haven't got that interaction. Versus something on a broader level where maybe you're just having a general meeting and, you know, you're planning something out. I don't know. It doesn't feel as important to have that. So yeah, I think it's
sort of feeds into the trust debate as well, doesn't it? About I think certain people feel like I need to see you to believe that you're working and you're focused, and so part of it is a trust situation.
For sure.
We've got some more stuff coming in from the from the audience. Luke says he loves the video on subject. He thinks it adds such a more sort of human connection to conversations, especially in training environments. But there is a balance of home life as well. Definitely, I think not everyone is lucky enough to have somewhere in their home where they can just put the video on, or where they're comfortable to put the video on. Lee says camera on when there are just a few people, when things are on a personal level. Okay, yeah. But if it's a company or group update, it can be turned off. That makes a lot of sense.
I think that's a lot of sense, because it's really weird, isn't it? Because then you get the person that hasn't put themselves on mute, don't you? And then they cough or rustle, and they keep coming to the front, and it's like, go away, Jane, stop rustling.
Oh dear, Jane will be upset.
Sorry, Jane. That's not bashing any Janes, by the way. It's just the first name that came to my head. Sorry. Should have said Phil.
And then Gavin said, camera on is less of an issue if you can't see your own face. You can turn off self-view in Zoom, but not in Teams. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
In online training, is seeing your face distracting? Turn it off then. Imagine being sat in a training room in the old days, but with a mirror in front of you. Try concentrating then. Do you know what? I hadn't even, because it's funny. You look at everything through your own lens, right? So my approach to it is all, you know, the being comfortable with the social side of it. But that's a really interesting kind of technological point of view of it is weird seeing yourself look back at you.
I added a comment actually the other day on LinkedIn, and with that exact thought, or that exact comment, that sometimes I find myself watching more of myself because I'm paranoid about the way I'm looking to other people, because it's there. It's like you said, it's got a mirror in front of your face, isn't it? And it can be distracting. I've never thought about that. It'd be weird.
I think it's also hard as well.
Room.
It's hard as well, I think, when if you ever do those sessions where you present, if you're doing like a PowerPoint or whatever, and you go live on that, often some systems will then hide all of the videos and you actually can't see who you're presenting to. I think in those sort of situations, actually maybe having that confidence that everyone's cameras are off and you're just presenting a set of slides, you know, because I think those kind of situations are quite strange as well, actually, you know.
That happened in my interview where I presented to my own face for about 15 minutes, and I was not enjoying that at all.
No, it's
I
strange,
could see the fear and terror reflected back at me, and it was quite off-putting.
Yeah.
Oh
So
dear.
another big topic for discussion that I think we bring to the table here, and it came up a lot in some of the research that I've just seen and the bits that I've just been reading about, was about time to create content. And I think this is an interesting topic because we often get asked about how long it takes to create our content, and how flexible can we really be, and that sort of stuff. But I guess across the whole, L&D has always been a bit of a, not a divide, but I guess a hot topic, hasn't it, about the storyline Captivate versus some more rapid authoring tools, the likes of Adapt and Evolve, and Nimble, Easy Generator, Chameleon. Very different style of content and ethos around building content. So let's talk a little bit about time to build content. How do we potentially speed this up? When should you speed it up? And what's right, what's wrong? Maybe even we bring into that conversation, dare I say it, resources versus courses. Ooh. I'm going to throw this first of all to Tom McDowell. Give us your viewpoints from an authoring tool point of view, because you're in the mix of it. You've
Yeah.
used multiple authoring tools. What's your views on this? How do you make it go faster?
So I think it goes back to what we were discussing before about identifying what you actually need, as opposed to what's cool and new. So, for instance, you're doing health and safety training. Yeah, you could use VR. Why? Insert answer here, kind of thing. So, when it comes to tools, I would say identify what your actual needs are, and then find the tool that delivers them. Rather than going for the biggest all singing, all dancing tool you can get your hands on or get someone to pay for. This is how we get into the world of, the industry standard is Storyline or Captivate. It's like, great, but they are very similar tools. So why are we not looking at all the long list there from Rise, which obviously comes to Storyline anyway, but you've got your Chameleons, your Adapts, your Evolves, Pebble Pro launched this year. There's been so much growth in that sector. Really start with what the need is and what tool meets that need. Start with your audience. How are they going to view it? Where are they going to view it? Think about the content. Is it going to have a lot of text? Is it going to be video based? Is it going to, are you looking to do kind of game based learning? All these things are really key to ask up front before you choose a tool, because some do everything, some do some things only. And then if time is a real element in terms of bringing the time down, look at the rapid authoring tools that don't require you to build everything from scratch. Look at how you can utilize what's already been done for you. That's where the Evolves, the Adapts, Chameleon Creator, dare I say Rise to an extent, really come into their own. In terms of being able to create really great looking content very quickly. Now, are you going to get that kind of totally bespoke world of Storyline and Captivate? No. But again, you have to ask the question, would that extra level of complexity add value to your learners? Or would it just be more fun for you? It's always tempting to go that way,
That's
but
where a nice
you've got to
blend
think the
comes
learner.
in, isn't it? And
Absolutely.
you need that blend, don't you? Because equally, if you stick to one source or one style of either authoring tool or content, it's going to get very dry very quickly once you've done
100%.
20, 30, 40 versions of them. And we often say this to clients, don't we? Is that we're looking after kind of your 80%, 70%, whatever that might be, but within that is you're looking to weave your own content throughout that, so that people aren't
100%.
necessarily just looking at the the same content all the time, but then you're getting your company specific stuff. And I guess that's where off the shelf can come in handy as well, is you use that to kind of, going back to that going digital conversation, to kind of bolster your initial presence. Let's bring in some content that gets us kind of grounded in that situation. Our team can then focus on creating the real specific nitty-gritty problems within our business, maybe using some of these quicker authoring tools that we've just kind of mentioned there. And that's where I think you get this really quick, agile way of working. And I think there's a great blend there as well going forward in your future strategies with time of creating content, of looking internally and saying, what skills do we have in-house and what skills do we actually need in-house? I was on a great webinar recently that had this discussion actually about kind of the power of using outsourced partners and freelancers and stuff like that. And sometimes you just need that one course that needs to be a little bit more. So look for your providers and look for your freelancers when you need that little bit more. And then you can focus on, rather than your internal L&D teams trying to be a be all and end all like media creators and graphic designers and stakeholder engagers and product managers, you can just say, you're the experts. Oh, let's pay a bit of money. You do that side project because that's more of a strategic event that's going to take 2-3 months. We'll continue to tick away at some of the smaller business needs. And that's when I think you can start speeding up the creation of your content as well, and get a bit smarter with your dynamics of your team, because we can't be everything in L&D.
Yeah. That's what I'm
I
hearing
think
as well. Sorry, Tom.
Sorry, no, go Gemma, go.
So just quickly, is that it's great. There's been a lot of talk, hasn't it, about how we need to, in L&D, we need to expand our marketing skills, our comms. We need to spend all the time with the business and the stakeholders and speak their language. And then suddenly what L&D needs to be and the skills we need to have are at a point of where a lot of teams, I think, are panicking. How do we possibly, deliver all of this? So it's things like that, taking a look at, well, what are the absolute specifics that we need, in terms of content creation that are, very relevant to our business, that we can't curate, that's out there, that we can't use, off the shelf content for. That's where we focus our time, and let's lean on, great providers to try and fill that gap, because it's just not possible for L&D, like you say, to deliver every aspect of every solution.
I think as well, my reflection on these sort of things and having lots of conversations with some of our customers and people in the industry in general is, when it comes to content, I don't know, I always think people forget that sometimes I suppose it's like, what is it that you're trying to achieve with this piece of content, and therefore don't worry if actually it ends up just being something that you could just put on a post-it note, and that's okay. Do you know what I mean? It's like sometimes I think there's a desire that actually, oh yeah, everything I need to do now should be like a 15-minute bite-size, animated, characterful, voiceover-driven, experience, and actually it doesn't need to be. Sometimes maybe, I guess the pandemic was a classic example of that, in terms of needing to get information out quickly to people. Well, in those scenarios, there's probably nothing wrong with just putting content out quickly, that even on a PowerPoint format. So I think it's thinking about what you're trying to achieve and what's the experience you want to, and sometimes you've got that real standout content, and therefore you want to go all the way to, and push the budget out. So what's the purpose, what you're trying to achieve with it, and sometimes you'll find that that can help in terms of understanding the timescales in which you want to deliver it in.
Just want to jump in because we've got quite a lot from the audience again. Thank you all for getting so involved on a Friday afternoon. It's very impressive. I'm amazed I'm still awake.
You're
Simon's
going on
asked...
holiday. Don't give us that. You're going on holiday in the morning.
He's going on a cruise for about 10 weeks.
It's my last day of the year.
Such
the
a slacker.
year.
I'm picking up your work.
Because I've taken so much time off throughout the year that this is just outrageous.
Yeah, you had a day.
His bags are just there, the other side of him, literally out of shot. He's got his cruise tickets.
This live stream will end, and that's it. It's to Southampton we go.
You're already on the boat. You've just got your backdrop, haven't you?
Yeah. I wonder what that rocking motion was. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
You can see the armbands by the side of your desk, Tom.
I don't have to wear armbands anymore. I've got an inflatable jacket that my wife bought me with a whistle.
They're on all the time, Gemma. He wears those all the time. That's just a safety feature.
I might fall into a very deep puddle. It's very difficult to get out of them. Anyway.
This is why Tom doesn't really like having his camera on, because we'll see the armbands.
It's very true. Anyway, yes, Simon said, or asked rather, is there any research into learners' preferences now between face-to-face learning and virtual classrooms as we're gradually getting back into normality? Getting the right hybrid blend is important. Yes, there is. There's lots of it. It was mostly done like 10 years ago, though, because it wasn't really a new topic, or isn't really a new topic. Most of the research I found is that their preferences are somewhat irrelevant. It's more about how effectively you design the experiences. Obviously, your in a localized sense, your people will have a preference based on experience. So if, I'm not saying you've done a bad job, but if they've experienced very bad digital learning, they will have a strong preference for better face-to-face training or something that's perceived to be better. I don't think you really want to shape too much around their preference. This is my view, obviously. I wouldn't shape it too much around their preferences. I would shape it around, can we deliver effective kind of digital or distance content? If you can't, then face-to-face should be the right way to go. And then do take their preferences into account, but I wouldn't shape your whole approach around their current preferences, because your whole thing is you want to change that. You want to get their buy-in, you want to persuade them to engage. Otherwise, we'd never do anything new, right?
And also don't expect that just because you deliver what you would deliver as a face-to-face workshop or day, don't expect that to just work suddenly digitally. In theory, it should, but it really doesn't. There's a number of different kind of features that you miss from that platform. Going back to that whole is camera on, camera off, where you miss the way that the learner's interacting with that. You miss the ability to kind of have those one-to-one conversations if you're having those kind of breakout and activity sections, don't you? You can't really do that on a Zoom call. Okay, you've got things like breakout areas, but can you hop in and out of those? Can you have individual conversations, a group conversation? So I think it's, for me, that question is, I'm very similar on, I guess I'm in parallel with you, Tom, that listen to their preference to a degree, but don't make that the driver, because if you've done it bad before, then they won't like it going forward. But equally, try something new and then figure out if they did like that or not, because happy sheets aren't validation, they're not success metrics, but they do serve a purpose in at least validating whether you've done a good initial job in that initial environment, then track the kind of success metrics afterwards. So I think still listen to people about their preferences and get their feedback, and keep changing, keep evolving.
Anything else on that one? Next comment from Simon again. Actually, issue I found is once you've chosen a tool, you can't migrate that raw content to another platform. So if you don't do the research and get the right platform, you have to start again. Yes. And isn't that a pain, considering how all the reporting standards are supposed to be standardized? So there is no good reason why you can't take it and put it into another authoring tool, except for the fact that people want your money. That's a particular gripe of mine. But it does highlight the importance of doing that front work. I think you've got to make the right choice in the first place, because buying a second and a third authoring tool gets expensive quick.
And we're big fans, Tom Moore and I, of quoting David James, the solution looking for a problem when it comes to choosing tech or software. Don't start with the software and then realize it's wrong. Start with the problem and get to the fact that the software is right for it or the tech is right for it.
We call these things authoring tools for a reason. A mechanic doesn't just grab a hammer and go, right, let's fix the car. That tends to be how I refer to Storyline, as the hammer of authoring tools. We use it for everything, because we just reach for it because it's automatic, right? You want a variety of tools available to you, or the most diverse tool that you can get your hands on. And Gavin's come in. starting with the end in mind is something we still struggle with in L&D. Jumping to a specific solution or even tool before defining what success looks like. How does this get us closer to that? And he followed up with, inside every fat course, there is a thin job aid trying to get out. Yeah.
I like that.
I think someone's been reading How People Learn, right? It's yeah, absolutely. I think that's often the case. Those courses usually have the word awareness in the title, of which me and Phil have spoken about before.
But on that topic, actually, shameless plug. If you've not seen it, 12 giveaways of Christmas. We do have 12 giveaways, but in there, the whole point of me bringing that up is there are two webinars where me and Tom have a Christmas debate, and one of those things that comes up, one of the topics is problem statements, and I think that's a great way of what you said. Often we don't think about that end kind of why we're doing something, and if you define a clear problem statement in what you're trying to actually achieve, not surface level problems like we've got an engagement problem or our content is too long, what sits underneath that, define why it's a problem, how you're going to solve it, and what the impact of that problem is. And that's when you start really refining, and you might end up with 4 or 5 different problem statements from your initial surface level issue. But problem statements, if you don't use them and at the moment, read into them, because they are really powerful. I know they can often be seen as a bit of a time waster and just get on with it and do it, but actually by clearly defining your problem, you're fixing the one true thing that you potentially need to, rather than going full force of something. I've fallen into that trap before, and then you end up with this, let's do this big game and let's create this amazing campaign around this, and let's also then spend the next 3 months of team managers coaching this and doing all sorts. And before you know it, actually, if you just refined your problem statement at the start, it might have even just been a process issue, or the fact that people didn't know how to access that on the knowledge base or something like that. So you've created work for yourself, and in a time poor department, spending an extra day to define your problem statement actually could potentially save you 2 or 3 months work.
They say, don't they? That, I mean, sorry, Gemma.
We like speaking at the same time.
We do, don't we?
We're in sync. We're like, our brains are working.
It's our thing, isn't it?
You go.
Yeah, I'll go. I'll only be brief. I was just going to say, because I remember in a previous life when I was working on a transformation program, one of our core things was that just ask the question why 5 times, and that was just the sort of thing. It was just like someone would say, "Well, this is this," and you go, "Well, why?" And they go, "Well, because this," and you just go, "Why?" And then you just and you drill it and you just write it down and you just demonstrate that actually, as you ask that question 5 times, you actually the thing that you get down to is very different than, as you said, the original statement, which is very broad and generic. So I think that's a sort of common thing. I've heard it say 3 times, 5 times, whatever it is. But that was our mantra when we were doing sort of mapping sessions and problem sessions. Why 5 times? Yeah, I just want to add to that, really.
Well-known user research model, that the 5 whys. Very simple,
Yep,
but
5
works very
whys.
effectively.
I was going to risk throwing some buzzwords in. I'm not sure how it will land, but I'm going to say it. Performance consultancy, because I know that is kind of a thing that is almost in every webinar. But the whole sort of the underpinning of that is really valuable, which is not assuming everything is a learning problem, like you alluded to, Phil, and actually doing a lot more work to uncover the root causes and evaluate, where is this really stemming from, and not just saying, yeah, of course, you've come to me with a problem, that I'll solve that with learning. Is part of that whole sort of analytical, critical thinking side that we need to be doing more of.
I think you're spot on, but I think it's hilarious we just lost 9 viewers when you said that. I'm almost certain they're coming back and they've just had a blip.
Do you know what? It's really great to get live feedback.
This is it.
I don't think I've ever had such concrete reviews.
From now on, when you and Tom go to talk at the same time, let Tom talk.
Okay, so shall I just go on mute and just smile? How long have we got left?
Oh no, there you go. At least half of them are back now.
Maybe she won't use buzzwords again. We'll give her a second chance.
Second chance for you, Gemma. There we go.
So I apologise. I will mute myself.
Buzzword Gemma.
Dear. Oh, well, there you go. You have Luke's sympathies. There you go.
And you guys do often refer to me as the fun sponge, and it's nice to see that people outside of the company are seconding.
Yeah. Spreading that onto the internet, 'cause that's what the internet needs, is a little bit less fun.
Yeah, killing the Christmas cheer, one live stream at a time.
Let's not clip that for the banner. But no, I do think you're right though, because L&D needs to focus far more time, I think, still on actual performance within the business. We're often kind of viewed as that odd department that spends a lot of money and asks for a lot of stuff. Whereas in actual fact, if we were to focus a lot more on how do we, as a business as a whole, how do we make the boat go faster? How do we make salespeople sell more whilst being more compliant? How do we make the, the HR team legally compliant? How do we make the operations team more effective and efficient so they can do their job quicker, saving us money? Rather than answering the question of how do we build a learning culture?
How do we get more people to take more courses?
Exactly. Yeah. This is it. They're not actual problems. They're just things L&D would like to be problems or focuses within a business.
Yeah, but you're trying to get people to do more courses as a result of either trying to improve compliance, performance, profitability, customer satisfaction. So that again goes back to those 5 whys of saying, why are you actually doing something? So, as an L&D, I think sometimes it's easy to say, well, L&D success is completion of the course, and therefore somebody else's success elsewhere in the business is the true metric. But no, it's a joint thing. It's relevant data. We've talked about it before, haven't we, Tom? About it was in the 12 giveaways of Christmas. Actionable metrics versus vanity metrics, and how stock track. They're relevant and they show you a picture of a story that can still be useful, but actually you report back to the business on your actionable metrics. What improvements do you have to attrition, money, profit, customer satisfaction, growth of the business, whatever that might be? Nobody really cares about how many courses people have done, how many people have logged into your platform, how many people got 80% on your quiz. It doesn't really mean anything. It tells you a story about potentially how to iterate how good your learning solution is, but it doesn't tell you if you've been successful. It's like a modern age happy sheet.
So I'm going to jump in just because we've only got 8 minutes left, and Gavin has just asked a fantastic question in the chat that I think we should answer.
Why is Gemma not on mute?
Yeah, actually. No, of course not. He's actually following on from your point. So to tell me if this is off topic. It's not. It's a brilliant question. Regarding performance consulting, many stakeholders aren't expecting this when they come asking for training. Great term. How would you suggest changing those expectations? Yeah, Gemma.
Now I've got to really put my finger where my mouth is, haven't I? I did see, I can't remember who it was, gave a piece of advice on this that I thought was good, which is still be positive and still say yes. So someone's come to you with a problem and they need help. So it's saying, absolutely, I want to help you with that. But first, could you share with me where that's come from, some of the context? Can we have a coffee and talk about this to help me really understand the problem that you're having, rather than going, absolutely not a learning problem and sort of jumping in or shutting it down. It's, I guess, like showing interest and opening up that chat from a point of view of you would like to get closer to it, you're empathizing, it's that emotional intelligence piece. You really do want to work with them and collaborate on this. They just need to help you get to where they are. And I heard someone speak about this and thought, I think that's a really good piece of advice. So that's how I would approach it.
I think the only thing I would add is if it's something you want to do, make it a proactive thing rather than waiting for them to come to you and then try and overcome that expectation. Start focusing over the next 3, 6, 9 months, whatever, to say, right, we as a department need to change how the business sees us. So let's start talking differently. Let's start getting involved in different things. Let's start proactively going out to departments and asking them, what's going on? What are the challenges? What are the pain points? That's literally the only thing I would add, because it makes overcoming it in the moment easier if you've got a kind of somewhat of a track record of being interested.
Really good point as well, Tom, what you've just said, because a lot of the events I'm going to, people are saying, okay, it's great saying speak in business terms, understand the pain points, but how do I get that seat at the table? And I think what you said there is sort of take it, find where you need to show up, start conversations, skill yourself up in what the business priorities are and what matters to your stakeholders, and and then you can start factoring that into your priorities and the decisions you're making in the conversations. I think you're right. We kind of have to be a bit more sort of proactive and take some responsibility for that.
Absolutely. Phil, we've got 5 minutes left, and I know there was a question we wanted to finish up with, and that we'd also like to put out to the audience as well.
Was there?
Yeah.
I can't remember what that was now.
This is the one element of this live stream that was planned before the fact. Top job, guys. Go team. So what we want to finish up with, obviously we're going into 2022. It's going to be a massive year, lots of change for lots of organisations. So what is the plan for 2022? What's on the radar? What are we doing? And yeah, tell us what you're doing as well. So Phil, let me throw it back to you first, as you can't ask the question. What's 2022 looking like for you right now?
Well, first of all, we're going to start off with embarrassment and better planned webinars and live streams.
Yes, we are, Phil.
I'll write it on my post-it note next time. So 2022, what holds? So let's talk about iAM. So there's some exciting stuff coming for iAM. I guess what we're really looking to do is say how do we take our content but better support customers and clients with being more of an L&D force, I guess, is how we would potentially describe it, and making L&D simple in a complex world again. There's lots of topics, lots of debate out there, and lots of different methodologies, and we've got some great plans in place to actually put some new products out there, some new kind of helpful services and tools that will basically help not just customers and clients, but also the wider L&D community as well. And in trying to take all of these jigsaw puzzles and try and make it to a degree the picture that people need, rather than a simplest kind of the big picture that you might get there. I guess that's really what 2022. Look, I said it right. 2022 holds for us. I don't know if anybody else has got anything else that they want to share that's coming up in 2022.
I mean, I suppose build on that, really, Phil, like you say. I mean, I guess there's obviously more of the same from iAM, in the sense that we are, we're sort of 150 courses in our library now, and I think we're continuing to build that out as we head into next year. But I think for us, it's you've a number of times I've sort of said about thinking about learning and development, or L&D people should think of themselves as product managers, and L&D as a product in its own right. I think we're going to start sort of practicing what we preach in the terms of how we start to think about what we're doing, and so we've always been keen, I think, at iAM that, it sounds a little bit cliche, but I think every time someone signs up, we don't really see it as a customer. You're now part of the sort of the broader iAM family, and actually, that should mean not just about a content subscription, but you're getting access to a wider array of tools and people and so on. So I think we're going to spend we have been spending some time, and are going to continue to spend some time early in the new year, creating that sort of complementary set of products, I guess. Because I think the other thing is, be really clear on, how everything stitches together, and people look at us and go, "You're off the shelf, but what about this? What about that?" And I think we're going to come out the blocks early in the new year with something that people understand how that all strings together and how you can access all of that. So really excited about how we've started to build out our iAM product into not just an off-the-shelf library, but other areas around, bespoke and support and value add, and the things that some of the stuff that's already in like our 12 days of Christmas, but is more formalized as a proper offering to our family. So yeah, that's what 2022 holds me.
Okay, so, on that note, if you've not checked out 12 giveaways of Christmas, it is on our website. We have got lots of freebies, competitions, and giveaways on there, and of course the two greatest parts of it all, the Tom and Phil Christmas debate, where we talk about plenty of other things about L&D and wear Christmas jumpers whilst doing it. I'm letting the side down today. So if you've not checked that out, check out on our socials and our website. You can find it on there. If you go to the website, it's in our resources tab, and you'll find the 12 giveaways of Christmas. And I guess just to end on that, we are also looking forward into 2022 is an alarm, apparently.
It's a small fire ravaging the building. Keep going.
It's
There goes the office.
it's the end
So
of the
two
live stream. That's what that is. End of the live stream.
Yeah, I thought it was then. I thought we were getting cut off. I am conscious of time though, but there are two things that I would like to finish on, apart from the 12 giveaways of Christmas. Gemma, we are at an event in February. Which event is that? If you could just give us some details.
The Learning Tech event
Learning
That's
Tech,
the one. Yes.
9th and 10th of Feb.
in Force. Quite a few of us as well. Proper
Exactly.
team
9th,
trip.
10th. We will be there, so come and visit us. We'll obviously put out more feeds on that and more details about any talks that we're doing and what stand we're on closer to the time. And the final thing that I would like to finish on is a real high for, I think, us for 2021, which is Mr. Tom Mcdowell. You are have some new ventures, I believe, as a new director of a certain institute which we heavily support.
Oh, yes.
iAM, we're all members of it as well. So, Tom, if you'd like to share that news as well, because I think that's just a great success story as well.
Yes, so as of last week, I was elected to the board of directors for the ELN, which is marvellous. It was a second attempt, so it's always worth having a second try. Even if you prove to be very unpopular the first time, just wear people down. If politics has taught us anything, wear them down and slander your opponents. But yeah, so it's really exciting to be joining that team to kind of shape that, and it really plays into what we've been talking about here about giving to kind of the L&D community. As an industry, we're a little bit different. I've found anyway ever since joining, in that we all just kind of help each other out. And that's very much our approach, is that we, like you were saying, other Tom, that we don't just kind of want to go, here's an off-the-shelf product, now go away and come back and give us more money later. We very much want to say, how can we help? How can we make your learning interventions a success? And that's exactly the same reason why I signed up to do this. And it's going to be a very exciting couple of years.
Lovely.
To celebrate that Phil just got a year right for the first time.
Well, end on that note before he gets it wrong again.
And on that note, yeah. Well, thank you for joining everybody who has joined us live. Thank you very much. Your questions were brilliant, and thank you very much for your interaction. We will be doing more live streams also next year, so keep a lookout for those, along with plenty more podcasts, webinars, and blogs as well. So thanks to everybody, and as always, this is purely our thoughts. Go away, use this as a soundboard to do your own research, find your own methodologies, and figure out what works best for you and your company.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas!